it was a delight, I must say. I've truly been blessed. I didn't realize it until you look back on the years. I had 1 week when he was 2 years old. And I say a week because I believe it was almost, if it wasn't 7 days in a row that I had to chastise him, it was close to it. It had to be at least six. Just out of the blue. At, and they say terrible twos. And this is why I remember this. I'm like, I never had a problem with him, so I'm not expecting this. And I would tell him, maybe don't touch something on the table. And he'd look me in my eye and just reach his hand over slowly and touch it. Looking me dead in my eye. I guess to catch my expression or see what I was going to do. But I'm not mentally prepared for this because this child never does anything. If he hears you say, oh, don't touch this, this is for this, he never goes that way. He's only interested in music. So every day for like 7 days, he'll catch me at some point, never maybe any particular time, but he deliberately touched. And then he makes sure that I'm seeing him. Now, I really don't know how long he probably was doing it because he was a jokester as he got older with his sisters. But, he would do that again. And I was like upset because he was this perfect child. And I didn't want him to get into the habit of doing something that I've seen other people have to chastise their children for. This is not my son. No, he's a perfect child. I can leave him with anyone. He never does anything wrong. He only sits there spinning 45s in the floor and never bothers anything. My husband and I had a restaurant, and we were living in the Noun Hotel apartment upstairs, and the restaurant was downstairs. And I had two different babysitters. Never ever had a comment or problem with anything. He was the perfect child, even at church. Sit there like an old minister until it was over. Never had to get out my choir seat or anything, but for him to do that, it was something wrong. And I just didn't clue in that this was just him testing me, because he'd never done anything before. He was just like the perfect child. I actually carried him in the little, what did they call them? The little things that you carry the baby in front with the straps on you.
Yeah,
This is
the
how I
satchel.
carried him. Yes, the little huggy, the little snuggle thing. And I carried him like that until he was even when he could walk a little, if I was in a hurry, he'd get in that. He was almost as long as I was because I'm not even 5 feet still. But he never, he was always the perfect child. Doesn't matter the weather, what's going on. Never cried for anything. Just just a great kid. So that 1 week kind of threw me for a loop. But even growing up, I never had a problem with him until he was 17 and doing labs at Davis Aero Technical School. And he would skip a lab session because he was trying to get to amphibians or something. And I didn't know until after it was over. And of course, he was a great student, so he'd catch up with it. But hearing conversations between people, and siblings do tell on each other when they get mad at you. And so I would find out. I'd be upset. And I'm like, you don't want, it was something like my children always were A, B students from kindergarten all the way through. They never had to study. They were always on top of their uh, academics because we always had fun. Before they went to school, I taught them how to read in their pre preschool years, and because I was at home mom, and to keep from being bored, I think I'm going to blame it on my own self. Because it's probably really the fact that I taught them to read because it would make me feel good and give them something to do. So they were academically strong and could read and did everything, and we did crafts, sciences, everything. And the activities for my kids were like word search puzzles to build vocabulary and things like that. And I just I couldn't understand why he would try to be like. Yes, I do understand now why he would try to challenge me. His cousins were not raised that way, so they, were more free spirits and had more outgoing experiences than my kids. My kids were laughed at in my family because of their language and their speech, because they were taught to speak properly. So they got teased at family gatherings, even though we had a lot of fun. My kids, they would wait for my kids to say something so they can make fun of it. Not in a bad way. It was funny to them, but my kids felt a certain kind of way, Like they would probably sit up underneath each other because they didn't know what was coming and when. But he just was that way until he got 17. And then he turned around and started going to AMPS, and he told me once, because I had confronted him, he said, well, I'm sorry, Ma, I just have to accept the consequences of whatever you're going to do because I got to do my music.
Wow.
And I looked at him like, is he crazy? Like, just staring in my face. And mind you, he probably was a little taller than me at that time. And as I remember, because it seemed like everybody was in the world. And I just looked, I couldn't believe that he stood there and told me that, because he was just like totally respectful always. And I knew that he meant it. The way he said it, it wasn't out of disrespect, but I knew that he really meant that. And so I had to accept that. I knew what music meant because music had been the only thing that I had to hold on to in my childhood. I was one of six, siblings, and I was the only one that was not included in different things that went on in the home, like certain family reunions to relatives on their side. But at the time growing up, until I was 16, I didn't know that I was not the blood relatives of these people. I'm thinking, what did you do that you can't go? Why aren't you going? And I would always be the one that had to stay home, and how that my mother would put it gently. Oh, I need you here to do this for me. Or, I need you to do something special for me. She didn't have the heart to tell me why I wasn't going. And she never did explain. I found out when I found out I had a different dad at just before my 17th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. So if things began to click, and so I understood then, not that I appreciated it, I still found a lot of fault in it. And there were some people that I never forgave because these were not just ordinary individuals. These were like the grandfather was a minister, and so I'm looking higher up for him to be a better character. And then I find out when my 30s that not only was he a minister, he had become a bishop in the AME church, in which I was a member of the AME church at that time, doing lots of work within the AME church. So that made me even more bitter. And I never said anything to anybody in the family about it. I just held it in like I always did all the years growing up. But those first 8 years of my life that I remember everybody going on vacation every summer, and I was left home alone, I was like, I'm thinking I must have done something really bad. I just couldn't imagine. I don't think I wanted to imagine. Well, that's when I would lean on my music. And I had an album that I got for Christmas of Leontine Price, the opera singer. And I had a 45 that my mama let me have of Nina Simone singing I Love You, Porgy. And I played those things. And so one of those things, wax was left on it to play on that, we had a Victrola. And I would wind that Victrola and I sit there from sun up to sundown because my mom was single. Mom's still working. And by the time she get home, it would be dark. And I just play and cry until I fall asleep, listen to the music and cry until I fall asleep. And, by the third or fourth time I did that, the little naps, my mom would be home or whatever. And then we have our time together. She'd have to get ready for work for the next day. She had a really, really rough time. So, yeah.